The galaxy had been at peace for centuries. Different races, alien empires, and distant worlds had lived in a delicate balance. The Galactic Council, a governing body made up of the universe's most powerful species, had overseen the universe's peace, ensuring that no one empire or planet would become too powerful. Every corner of the galaxy was known, every system mapped, and every civilization monitored. But that peace was about to be shattered. Out of the deep black void of space, a massive object suddenly appeared, one that the Council was not prepared for. It wasn't a new alien fleet, nor was it a space station or a research vessel. It was something far stranger. The enormous ship, stretching for miles and radiating a strange, unfamiliar energy, emerged out of nowhere. No one had seen it coming, and no one knew what to make of it. The Galactic Council's sensors immediately detected the ship's arrival, but even their most advanced technologies couldn't fully understand it. The ship's energy signature was nothing like anything they had encountered before. It wasn't just foreign. It was ancient. The readings that came from the ship were unlike any they had ever seen. It wasn't just a new technology. It was something old, something forgotten. And the most confusing part, the ship didn't send out any signals, nor did it communicate with any known channels. It simply hovered there in space, as if waiting. The Council's ambassadors were alarmed, but none of them had any real answers. How could they? They had never seen a ship like this before. It didn't belong to any known race. It didn't look like a ship from any of the galactic empires. And it certainly didn't appear to be a peaceful diplomatic mission. In fact, it felt like a warning. An emergency meeting was called immediately. The Council members, leaders of the most powerful species in the galaxy, gathered in the central hall. As the lights dimmed and the holograms flickered to life, their voices filled the room, filled with concern and confusion. "We must act quickly," said the leader of the Zothar Empire, a towering alien species with a voice like thunder. "That ship could be a weapon. We don't know its intentions. We should prepare our fleets for any possible threat." Others agreed. "We should send our best scouts," said a diplomat from the Anarian Federation, a species known for their advanced reconnaissance technology. "We need to learn what we're dealing with." But not everyone was in agreement. The leader of the Rillian Collective, a peaceful race known for their wisdom, spoke up. "We should not act rashly. It could be a peaceful envoy, perhaps a new species we have not yet encountered. We must make contact before assuming the worst." There was silence. The debate continued, but as the hours passed, one thing became clear. No one knew what this mysterious ship was, or what it wanted. Meanwhile, on Earth, the crew aboard the massive vessel stood at attention. They had been waiting for this moment, but even they hadn't fully understood the power they had unleashed. The warship, massive, ancient, and nearly indestructible, was the last remaining relic of a forgotten civilization. The crew was made up of humans, but not like those the Council had ever encountered before. These humans had discovered an ancient power, a long-lost technology that could change the entire galaxy. But as the warship continued to float in space, silent and still, the crew could only wonder if they had made the right decision. They were supposed to be a beacon of hope, of peace. But what if their arrival would be misunderstood? What if the galaxy saw them as a threat instead? Back in the Council chamber, tension mounted. They could feel it. The galaxy had lived in peace for so long, and yet now, it was teetering on the edge of chaos. No one had expected humanity to return, at least, not like this. And no one was prepared for what would happen next. The sensors continued to track the ship's movements. It hadn't moved from its position, but the strange energy coming from the ship seemed to grow stronger, like the hum of an ancient power slowly waking from a long slumber. "Where is it from?" asked the leader of the Xalaxian Dominion, their large eyes staring at the data screens in front of them. "There's no record of any ship like this in the galaxy. We have nothing to compare it to." "We need to get answers," said the Zothar leader again, his fists clenched. "The last thing we want is for this ship to be an invasion force." An advisor from the Altran Empire, a race of scholars and diplomats, spoke up. Perhaps we are making the wrong assumption. Perhaps we should seek a peaceful solution first, before jumping to conclusions. But we must act swiftly. As the debate continued, the ship remained silent. No one knew if the ship's crew was listening, watching, or preparing for something even more dangerous. The galaxy was on the edge, and the future of humanity, and the future of the galaxy itself, hung in the balance. For the first time in many centuries, the Galactic Council did not know what would happen next, and that uncertainty made the galaxy hold its breath. The silence in the Galactic Council's hall grew unbearable. Each leader, each ambassador, stared at the holographic displays showing the strange warship hovering in space. No communication, no explanation, just the ominous presence of something none of them could comprehend. The members of the council were used to dealing with alien species, negotiating peace treaties, and mediating conflicts. But this was different. This was an unknown force, something they had never encountered before. The counselors, once confident in their superiority, now found themselves questioning their understanding of the universe. The ship's energy signature continued to fluctuate, growing stronger by the minute. The council's highest-ranking officials, those with the greatest access to technology and resources, attempted everything within their power to make sense of it. They reached out with communication signals, tried to ping it with subspace scans, but each attempt was met with failure. The ship was impervious to their methods, remaining cold and distant, as if it had no interest in communication. What could it be? Muttered Ambassador Teldra, a seasoned diplomat from the Valen species, her voice tense. This ship is a weapon, unsure of it. It could be hiding its true purpose, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. I don't think it's a weapon, countered Praxel, the leader of the Tzaloxian Dominion, his mandibles clicking nervously. It doesn't act like one. There's no immediate aggression, no sign of targeting our ships or our planets. It's almost like it's waiting for something, or someone. As the debate raged on, none of the leaders noticed the subtle shift that began to occur on the warship itself. Inside, a solitary figure stood in the center of a massive control room. The ship was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Powered by ancient and long-forgotten technology, its systems were old, untouched for millennia. The ship was in sleep mode, but the moment the council began to debate its fate, the ship's core awakened, its energy systems slowly igniting. A low hum reverberated throughout the vessel, slowly building in intensity. For the humans on board, the ship's awakening was both thrilling and terrifying. They had no idea how the galaxy would react to their arrival. Their ancestors had left behind this warship, and now it had been reactivated. The technology, the weapons, the knowledge contained within its walls. They had only begun to scratch the surface. For Captain Elias and his crew, this moment marked the beginning of an uncertain future. Humanity was no longer the species that had cowered in the shadows of the galaxy. They had the power, the resources, and the knowledge to make a mark. But would the galaxy see them as allies, or would they be branded as conquerors? The crew was divided. Some believed in the possibility of peace, others feared the consequences of a full-scale war. But all of them shared one undeniable truth. The warship had come back to life for a reason, and that reason was tied to Earth. Back in the Galactic Council's hall, the debate grew more intense. The leaders continued to argue, their voices rising in frustration. They needed answers, and they needed them fast. Time was running out. The presence of the ship was threatening the status quo of the entire galaxy. The Council was no longer in control. The unexpected arrival of humanity's warship had thrown everything into chaos. "We cannot afford to wait any longer," said the leader of the Rillan Confederation, her voice trembling with urgency. "We must send a fleet to intercept them before they can make their move. The longer we delay, the more dangerous this becomes." But just as the Council was preparing to take action, something changed. The warship, which had been stationary for what felt like an eternity, suddenly shifted. The energy signature increased exponentially, sending shockwaves throughout the system. It was as if the ship had decided to send a message. With a sudden burst of power, the warship began moving. Slowly at first, then gaining speed, heading toward the heart of the galaxy. Panic rippled through the council chamber. "What are they doing?" one of the ambassadors shouted. "They're heading straight for the capital." Before any of the leaders could respond, a communication channel suddenly flickered to life on one of the consoles. A human voice crackled through, breaking the silence with a message that sent chills down every spine in the room. "This is Captain Elias of the UH Vanguard. We are humans, and we have returned. Stand down, or face the consequences." The message was brief but clear. The Council, once confident in their ability to control the galaxy's fate, now had no choice but to face the consequences of humanity's return. The galaxy had no idea what was coming. But one thing was certain: humanity wasn't asking for permission. They were here, and they were ready to make their presence known. For the first time in centuries, the balance of power in the galaxy had shifted. The future was uncertain, and the Council had no idea whether this new force was a friend or a foe. But the universe was about to find out, and it would never be the same again. The Council members were frozen in their seats as the voice from the Vanguard echoed in their chamber. Captain Elias's message had not just sent ripples through the network, it had torn apart the foundations of their understanding. Humanity, whose existence had been nothing but a forgotten myth to some, a footnote in galactic history to others, had just announced their return. The tension in the air was thick enough to suffocate anyone who dared to breathe too deeply. The Galactic Council, formed to maintain balance, was now faced with an unimaginable reality. Humanity, with all its lost history and advanced warships, had come back. The room erupted in chaos, the previously composed leaders now scrambling for control over their own panic. Ambassador Teldra of the Valen, ever the tactician, was the first to regain her composure. "This is an act of war," she said, her voice cold and sharp. "The Vanguard has made it clear. They're not here to negotiate." But Praxel, the Xaloxian Dominion leader, took a deep breath, his many eyes narrowing. "It's not that simple, Teldra. We don't know what they want. We can't assume hostility based on a single message. They may want to talk." Talk. The thought seemed absurd. How could the galaxy communicate with a species that had once been nothing more than a whisper in their history books? Yet the Council knew that they couldn't afford to make hasty decisions. The Vanguard's mere existence was a game-changer, and the stakes couldn't be higher. As the Council deliberated, Elias stood at the helm of the Vanguard, watching as the stars streaked by in a blur of motion. He could feel the weight of their eyes on him, every sensor in the galaxy now focused on their movements. The crew, having spent years training for this very moment, was tense but resolute. They had come for a reason, and they would not leave without fulfilling their mission. "We've waited long enough," Elias muttered under his breath. His words were barely audible over the hum of the ship's engines, but his crew heard them clearly. Humanity's past, their ancient history, the forgotten wars they had fought. Everything was leading to this. They had not just inherited a warship, they had inherited a responsibility. A responsibility to not just survive, but to prove their place in the galaxy. "Captain," Lieutenant Morales spoke up, his voice serious. "The Council is going to send a fleet to intercept us. We need to make sure our message is heard before that happens." Elias turned to face him, his eyes steely with resolve. "Let them come. We didn't return to hide, and we didn't return to negotiate for scraps. We're here to stake our claim." The entire crew stood still as the ship's systems began to hum louder, activating weapons systems, shields, and targeting arrays. The human presence had been dormant for centuries, but now it was awake, and it was demanding attention. As they passed the outer rim of the galactic core, the ship's energy signatures began to spike, causing ripples of concern within the Council's communication network. Back in the Galactic Council chambers, things were rapidly deteriorating. A group of the more militant factions had already made up their minds. Humanity was a threat. "We can't wait any longer," growled an ambassador from the Rillan Confederation. "Prepare our fleets. We need to stop them before they get too close to our capital." "Are we truly ready for this?" Teldra asked, her tone hesitant but firm. "The Vanguard is no ordinary warship. It could be decades, centuries, more advanced than anything we have in our arsenal." Her concerns were drowned out by a chorus of impatience, but Praxel's voice, calm and authoritative, interrupted the growing tension. "The situation is more complex than any of you realize. This ship, these humans, are not the same as the others we've encountered. The Vanguard is a relic, yes, but a relic of something powerful. We must proceed with caution. Their arrival may be a sign that something greater is at play here." At that moment, a high-ranking official from the Valen Empire stood up and declared, "We've exhausted all diplomatic options. The time for talk is over." She slammed her fist onto the console, her decision final. "Prepare the fleets. We strike now." Meanwhile, the Vanguard was only a few hours away from the heart of the galaxy. Elias, standing at the ship's helm, gazed out at the stars with a sense of cold determination. "This is what it all comes down to," he said, looking to his first officer. "Either we'll prove ourselves worthy of this galaxy, or we'll prove them right. The galaxy thought we were nothing. But we're here to show them that Earth has always been waiting for this moment." Morales nodded, watching as the warship's trajectory adjusted, heading straight for the capital world of the Galactic Council. The crew knew the risks, but they also knew the power they carried in their hands. If the Council wanted a war, then that's exactly what they would get. As the Vanguard neared the center of galactic power, the Council scrambled to react. Ships mobilized, weapons readied, and fleets organized into formation. The war was coming. The Councilors were ready for battle. The question was, would humanity truly come in peace, or would the stakes be much higher than anyone expected? As the battle lines drew closer, the future of the galaxy hung in the balance. And no one, not the Council, not the humans, not even the stars themselves, could predict how this confrontation would unfold. Would humanity's warship leave a legacy of peace or destruction? Would the Council finally face the reckoning they had been dreading for centuries? The tension in the Galactic Council chambers reached a boiling point. As the fleet readied for battle, the representatives of each species gathered around their tactical consoles, fingers hovering over the activation buttons, prepared to issue commands to their warships. On every screen, the image of the Vanguard, a lone human warship, loomed large. Its silhouette was dark and imposing against the backdrop of the stars, like a shadow that heralded doom. "We cannot let them reach the capital," Ambassador Jorek from the Seraph Syndicate said, his voice tight with fear. His species, known for their cunning and aggression, had never known mercy. "This is an invasion. We must strike now." But Praxel, the Talaxian representative, held up a three-fingered hand, signaling the room to quiet down. He was a being of unusual calm, his many eyes shifting back and forth as if reading the room, sensing the pulse of every soul in it. "We don't know what the Vanguard's intentions are. If humanity is indeed behind that ship, we must consider the possibility that we're dealing with something far more complex than an attack." Jorek sneered, but even he couldn't dismiss the logic in Praxel's voice. Humanity was still a mystery to most of the galaxy. Yes, they had disappeared millennia ago, but there were still whispers, stories passed down through the ages, that spoke of their terrifying potential. And now, they were back. On the bridge of the Vanguard, Elias stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his mind focused entirely on the mission. He could feel the weight of his ancestors' legacy bearing down on him, pushing him forward. His eyes flickered over the tactical readouts on the wall screens as the battle-ready ships of the Galactic Council drew closer. Time was running out. He had to make a choice, fight or talk. "I'm ready to begin the final preparations, Captain," Lieutenant Morales said, stepping forward. "The fleet is in position. They're expecting us to attack. Elias turned slowly, his gaze sweeping across the crew gathered around him. The Vanguard was a symbol of humanity's strength, but he couldn't deny the responsibility it carried. He knew this was a point of no return. Once they moved in, there would be no turning back. He took a deep breath, feeling the ancient weight of humanity's history settle into his chest. We didn't come to the stars to hide. And we didn't come here to beg for peace. We're here to claim what was once ours. His voice was steady, unwavering, much like his resolve. The crew nodded, their faces a mix of fear and determination. They had prepared for this day their entire lives. The ship was equipped with advanced weapon systems, but they knew this wasn't just a battle of firepower. This was a battle of wills. The galaxy had long forgotten humanity's might. They had long since written them off. But now, the Vanguard was here to remind them. Meanwhile, in the council chambers, the heated discussion continued. Despite their preparations, there was a growing sense of doubt among some of the representatives. What if they were wrong? What if humanity had returned not as an enemy, but as something more, something far more dangerous than they could ever imagine? Teldra, the Valen ambassador, shook her head. If this is a test, they've already failed. We cannot allow them to pass this point without consequences. You don't understand, Praxel countered, his voice calm but resolute. This ship, this humanity, is something unlike anything we've encountered before. I'm telling you, we can't destroy them without understanding the consequences first. If we do, we might be dealing with something that will haunt us for centuries. But Jorak was having none of it. There's no room for hesitation, Praxel. If we don't strike now, we risk losing everything. The debate raged on, but in the heart of the Vanguard, Elias had made up his mind. He was not going to be the one to ignite the war, but neither would he be the one to let humanity bow before the Council. The Vanguard would make a statement that would echo across the galaxy for centuries to come. We're not the invaders here, Elias muttered to himself as he gripped the arm of his command chair. We're reclaiming what was stolen from us. A deep hum filled the air as the Vanguard's engines roared to life, and the ship slowly began to shift course, heading directly toward the capital. On the view screen, the stars began to stretch out, and the approaching fleet of the Galactic Council appeared as a line of shimmering lights in the distance. Behind the Vanguard, humanity's fleet was waiting, hidden from view, but ready to make their presence known if the worst came to pass. 1,000 warships, all powered by advanced technology lost to history, sat in the shadows, awaiting their orders. Elias stood tall, his gaze unwavering as he stared into the vastness of space. This was the moment when everything would change, and whether the galaxy was ready or not, humanity would take its place among the stars once more. Prepare to engage, Elias commanded, his voice steady. The Vanguard shot forward, faster than anyone could have anticipated, its weapons primed, shields raised, and engines blazing. It was only a matter of time before the fate of the galaxy was sealed. Would they negotiate peace, or would the battle for the future of humanity begin here, in the very heart of the Galactic Council? The galaxy held its breath. Teldra, the Valen ambassador, shook her head. If this is a test, they've already failed. We cannot allow them to pass this point without consequences. You don't understand, Praxel countered, his voice calm but resolute. This ship, this humanity, is something unlike anything we've encountered before. I'm telling you, we can't destroy them without understanding the consequences first. If we do, we might be dealing with something that will haunt us for centuries. But Jorak was having none of it. There's no room for hesitation, Praxel. If we don't strike now, we risk losing everything. The debate raged on, but in the heart of the Vanguard, Elias had made up his mind. He was not going to be the one to ignite the war, but neither would he be the one to let humanity bow before the Council. The Vanguard would make a statement that would echo across the galaxy for centuries to come. We're not the invaders here, Elias muttered to himself as he gripped the arm of his command chair. We're reclaiming what was stolen from us. A deep hum filled the air as the Vanguard's engines roared to life, and the ship slowly began to shift course, heading directly toward the capital. On the view screen, the stars began to stretch out, and the approaching fleet of the Galactic Council appeared as a line of shimmering lights in the distance. Behind the Vanguard, humanity's fleet was waiting, hidden from view, but ready to make their presence known if the worst came to pass. 1,000 warships, all powered by advanced technology lost to history, sat in the shadows, awaiting their orders. Elias stood tall, his gaze unwavering as he stared into the vastness of space. This was the moment when everything would change, and whether the galaxy was ready or not, humanity would take its place among the stars once more. "Prepare to engage," Elias commanded, his voice steady. The Vanguard shot forward, faster than anyone could have anticipated, its weapons primed, shields raised, and engines blazing. It was only a matter of time before the fate of the galaxy was sealed. Would they negotiate peace, or would the battle for the future of humanity begin here, in the very heart of the Galactic Council? The galaxy held its breath. "You said." The countdown was nearly complete, and the tension inside the Vanguard's command center was thick with anticipation. Elias stood, staring out at the vast expanse of stars ahead, his thoughts racing. The Galactic Council had already made their threats, their warnings, but it was too late. Humanity was no longer the helpless species they once were. The Vanguard, an ancient relic from Earth's past, was now a symbol of their return, a warning to the galaxy. Behind him, the hum of the control panels filled the air as his crew worked in unison, preparing for the next steps. Lieutenant Morales stood close by, her fingers flying over the console with practiced precision. Her expression was focused, but Elias could see the determination in her eyes. She was ready for whatever came next. "We're almost in range," Morales reported, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "The Council's flagship is still in position, but they're not responding to our messages. It's like they've gone silent." "Not surprised," Elias muttered. "They'll play their games, but we're not waiting any longer. They'll know soon enough that humanity isn't just a relic of the past. We're here to stay." He gave a nod, and the crew fell into action, the ship's systems humming as they prepared to launch a demonstration of their power. The Vanguard's weapon systems had been reconfigured, enhanced with technology humanity had developed during their long absence. No one had expected them to return as conquerors, but they had come back ready to assert their place in the galaxy. "Captain, the Council's fleet is moving," reported Commander Dune, his voice tinged with urgency. "It looks like they're preparing to intercept us." Elias glanced at the holographic display in front of him, his heart steady. The Council's fleet was massive, thousands of ships from every corner of the galaxy, but the Vanguard wasn't alone. Humanity's ancient fleet, long hidden away in deep space, was silently waiting for its moment to strike. The moment of reckoning had arrived. "Initiate fleet movement," Elias ordered, his voice calm but filled with resolve. "We show them that humanity is no longer a forgotten species. We are the future of the galaxy." The Vanguard's engines roared to life as it surged forward, cutting through space with a power that was unmatched. The massive warship was a shadow against the backdrop of the stars, an unstoppable force heading straight for the Galactic Council's flagship. The Council's fleet began to form up, but it was clear they were unsure of how to proceed. They had expected negotiations, perhaps a surrender. Instead, they faced an enemy with nothing to lose. Humanity had suffered, been forgotten, and underestimated for too long. Now it was time for them to take their place in the galaxy. "We're in firing range," Lieutenant Morales said, her voice tight. "Orders, Captain." Elias's fingers hovered over the communication controls for a moment, but then he made his decision. "We'll give them one last chance to surrender," he said. "Send them a message. Humanity demands respect, not mercy. They'll either recognize our strength, or they will face our wrath." The message was sent, transmitted directly to the Council's flagship. "This is Captain Elias of the Vanguard. Humanity has returned, and we will not be ignored any longer. You've had your chance to control us. We're taking back what's ours." A tense silence followed as the transmission was received. The council was stalling, debating, but Elias knew there was no turning back now. They would either stand down or face the power of a people who had been underestimated for far too long. "We're locking on to their flagship," Commander Dune reported. "Weapons are ready, Captain." Elias nodded once more. "Hold fire, but prepare for a full assault if they don't comply in the next 30 seconds. The seconds stretched out like hours. It felt like an eternity, the fate of humanity hanging in the balance. But deep down, Elias knew this moment was inevitable. They had come too far, and they were ready. The Vanguard was a symbol of humanity's defiance, a warning to the galaxy that they would never again be a forgotten species. Finally, the message came through. The Galactic Council's leader spoke, his voice filled with a mix of disbelief and defiance. "Humanity's return cannot be allowed. We will not bow to threats." Elias didn't hesitate. "Then prepare for war." With that, he gave the command. The Vanguard's weapon systems unleashed a devastating barrage. The first blast hit the Council's flagship, sending a shockwave across the battlefield. The fleet responded immediately, opening fire with everything they had. But it was too late. The Vanguard and humanity's hidden fleet struck back with a force that shattered their enemies. The war had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. The battle raged in the cold, infinite expanse of space, the sharp glow of lasers and explosions illuminating the darkness. Elias stood firm, his gaze locked on the holographic display, showing the chaos unfolding. The Vanguard had initiated its assault, and humanity's ancient fleet, long hidden from the galaxy's prying eyes, was now at the forefront of the battle. A fleet that had once been thought lost to time was now humanity's strongest weapon, and it was proving its worth. "Captain, we've breached their first line of defense," Commander Dune reported, his voice steady but filled with the excitement of the moment. "The Council's fleet is falling back." Elias allowed himself a small nod, but his mind was already focused on the next phase. The Galactic Council had underestimated humanity, thinking that they could crush them with ease. They had failed to realize the strength of a species pushed to the edge, one that had endured centuries of suffering, only to rise stronger, more determined than ever before. "Maintain the pressure," Elias ordered. "We need to push them deeper into their defensive lines. Don't give them a chance to regroup." As the battle continued, the enemy ships began to scatter, their formations collapsing under the weight of the relentless assault. The Vanguard and the hidden fleet moved with precision, their weapons unleashing a barrage of firepower that shattered enemy ships with each strike. The Council had no idea what they were facing. They were dealing with more than just a human race. They were facing the future, a future that would no longer bow to their control. "Captain, we've detected a new threat," Lieutenant Morales reported, her voice tense. "A fleet of unknown ships. They're coming in fast. It looks like they've been waiting for this moment." Elias frowned, his eyes narrowing. "What are we dealing with?" "Unclear, Captain," Morales replied. "But they're heavily armed, and they're moving toward us at full speed." The Vanguard systems blinked with new data as the mysterious fleet entered the battlefield. These ships were unlike anything they had seen before, sleek, dark, and terrifying. The unknown fleet moved with an eerie precision, as if they had been waiting for this very moment to strike. "We've been outnumbered," Dune said, his voice tinged with concern. "We can't fight them all off. We'll need reinforcements." Elias clenched his fists, unwilling to back down. He could feel the weight of the moment. This was no longer just about revenge against the Galactic Council. It was about ensuring humanity's survival and asserting their rightful place in the galaxy. "Send a signal to the fleet," Elias said, his voice low but filled with authority. "Tell them we need backup. We will not lose here." The transmission went out, and within moments, their backup arrived. Humanity's hidden forces, previously scattered in remote sectors of the galaxy, had now converged on the battlefield. Their ships, like the Vanguard, were relics of an ancient time, but they were powerful beyond belief, equipped with the latest technology humanity had developed during its long isolation. As the reinforcements arrived, the mysterious fleet faltered. It was as if they had underestimated humanity's resources. The fight intensified as the newly arrived ships joined the fray, forcing the unknown fleet to fight a two-front war. Slowly, but surely, the tide of the battle began to turn in humanity's favor. "We're breaking through," Commander Dune said, his voice filled with determination. "The unknown fleet is retreating. The Galactic Council is in disarray." Elias watched as their enemies scattered across the battlefield, retreating into the cold void of space. The Vanguard and its fleet had proven their strength, and the message was clear. Humanity was no longer a force to be ignored. As the last remnants of the enemy forces retreated, Elias exhaled deeply, his grip loosening on the armrest of his chair. They had won, for now, but this was only the beginning. The Galactic Council would never forget what they had seen today. Humanity had unleashed its full might, and the galaxy would never be the same again. "We've done it," Captain Morales said, her voice soft, but her eyes shining with pride. "We've sent a message they'll never forget." Elias nodded, his gaze shifting to the stars ahead. "This is just the beginning," he said, his voice steady and filled with purpose. "The future of humanity lies in the stars, and we've just started claiming our place." As the Vanguard and its fleet drifted in the aftermath of the battle, Elias couldn't shake the feeling that the galaxy had only just begun to understand the power of the human race. The Council had made a grave mistake in underestimating them, but humanity's rise was far from over. They had made their presence known, and they would not be silenced again. The battle for the stars had only just begun.